Peace and blessings, and welcome to Catholic Crossroads, a Black Catholic's journey, where we discuss topics from a Black Catholic perspective of social and spiritual issues happening locally, nationally, and globally. My name is Gardis Watts.
And I'm Tina Carter.
And we're part of the Chicago Black Catholics Alliance, an organization that looks to collaborate with Black Catholics in the Chicago and the Chicagoland area. This month, being the 100th anniversary of Black History Month.
And the first anniversary of this podcast.
Yes, and the first anniversary of this podcast. We will talk about Black history. We'll probably discuss some of our journeys in this one cycle calendar year that we've been doing this podcast. But we're going to talk about Black history. Like I said, 100 years of recognizing and celebrating Black history in its context, and what we can do to kind of improve it and go deeper into our history. Unfortunately, we also have to discuss the topic of the day, which is the ICE raids, in particular in Minnesota. As of this recording, there was another person murdered by ICE, the umpteenth person murdered by ICE. I kind of lost count now. And it was, the victim was a white man.
Yes.
So we'll kind of move into that as well, since it is the subject of the day. But we'll start with at least a little good. 100 years of Black history. Now, for those who don't know, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who is the father of Black history, started the American Negro History Association right here in Chicago.
Yep.
And he started it in 1915, I think.
Yep.
And so his organization, which was housed in the YMCA, actually not too far from here.
Right.
And they had a perspective of trying to bring back the history that was lost during our ancestors' capture into this country. Because as most of you all know, for those who are African American, somewhere along your lineage, your ancestors was from Africa. They were captured, enslaved, and a lot of our history was lost.
Right.
And even in that process of being emancipated from slavery, all the way up until the time Dr. Carter G. Woodson founded Black history, there was still some history that was lost in translation. So Dr. Carter G. Woodson decided that we need some sort of mechanism to remind us about our history, and not just remind us, but to use this as a starting point of finding ourselves. Because people who have an identity know their history. So this was the foundations of kind of building an identity for Black people. So in 1926 was the first official what they call Negro History Week.
Right.
And it was always in the first week of February, because in February it was Frederick Douglass's birthday.
Yep.
And it was also Abraham Lincoln's birthday.
Right.
So this is why he designated it in February, not because it's the shortest month of the year, even though it is.
It is.
But Dr. Woodson's rationale was Frederick Douglass's birthday and Abraham Lincoln's birthday. So I know, Tina, you work, for Chicago Public Libraries, and
Yep.
you guys have a whole thing about this. So you want to talk about?
Yeah. So actually, one of the unique things about being in Chicago during that time with Dr. Woodson is that one of the other things that really inspired him to have this Black or Negro History Week was the start of the Bud Billiken Day Parade as well. And that inspired him to find the time in history, find the time where we, as African Americans, as Black people, as Negroes, which is what we were called at that time, to remember our history as it relates to not only this country but to the world itself. Sometimes we think of Black History Month as just this time when we remember famous people, but it's so much more than that. It's deeper than that. It's also to remember where we came from, and how we fit in the African diaspora. The other interesting thing, for me specifically as a librarian, a public librarian, is that the Woodson Regional Library, which is located on 95th and Halsted here in Chicago, was named for him. And the Vivian Harsh collection is housed there. Vivian Harsh was our first uh, Black librarian branch manager at the Hall Branch Library, Cleveland Hall Branch Library.
And she was one of the co-founders of Dr. Woodson's organization too.
Yes, and she was one of the co-founders of Dr. Woodson's organization. One of the things that Vivian did was she went around the world um, collecting books, manuscripts, and other things about the Black experience. And for a very long time, they were housed at the Hall Branch Library. When that collection became so big, it was decided to give it its own space. And that's where the Vivian Harsh collection is currently at on 95th and Halsted. And it is actually one of the largest collections of Black history documents in the Midwest. There are people from around the world that come and use the collections that they have there. And that was just one small thing that she did. In addition to that, she also created a space, which our libraries still continue to do today, where authors, writers can come and talk about their work. During her time, it was writers such as Richard Wright. Um, it was Gwendolyn Brooks and others that would come to the library and have discussions about their works and the world around them. We also saw Charlemagne Rollins, and I would be remiss if I did not mention Charlemagne Rollins. Charlemagne Rollins was our first African American, our first Black children's librarian in Chicago. And that's near and dear to my heart because for very many years I was a children's librarian. So there's this rich history that was founded by Dr. Woodson, Vivian Harsh, Charlemagne Rollins, and others that we are still able to use today. And as we celebrate 100 years of telling our story as it relates to America and the diaspora, we have to remember that it was people like them that gave us the space to do it and that gave us the space to celebrate those stories. It's more than just remembering inventors or that report that one kid has to write on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It's more than that. It's our stories too, and how our stories are a part of this longer history, this longer legacy that we then leave behind for others.
Yeah, and I think that's important when you said our stories, because we got to reclaim those stories. Because one of the things that concerns me about Black history now is that we have other people telling our stories,
Yeah,
and that's fine, but at the same time a lot of them aren't telling the story correctly, and they're not telling the story in a sense where we get some sort of compass. Because just like with all history that we learn, and I agree, history is not just learning about dates, time, places, and
right.
who invented this. It's all about building an identity,
Exactly.
and this identity is going to guide us now and into the future, because it's a history is supposed to be a compass for us. Because uh, we don't know where we're going unless we know where we came from.
Exactly.
Many people still believe that our history started in slavery. Now, the thing is that yes, slavery did happen, but that's not where we start our history. Because if we start our history from slavery, everything else is just a bonus. Because if we think of ourselves as being from slaves, then what does that do with us as a people? Like, how do we think of ourselves as a people?
Right.
And this is probably one of what Dr. Joy DeGruy calls post-traumatic slave syndrome. It's one of the things where we unconsciously think that, yeah, our history started at slavery. And if we don't go beyond slavery, past that period of time where our ancestors had to endure those conditions and survived it, we won't understand, okay, how do we get to that point? Because the problem is that we're getting to these rough inflection points for us, and we're not understanding, okay, how are we getting there? There is a history that should be studied, on the point where Africa at one point in human history was the purveyor of civilization.
Yeah.
I mean, mathematics and science and physics, and at one point, when you talk about the first non-white nation that was a superpower in this world, we're talking about the Moors.
Right.
The Moors ruled the known civilization during that time for 8 centuries.
Right.
But then all of a sudden, Columbus and the Spaniards and the Europeans just basically, kind of wiped them out. But we have to understand, what was the turning point? How did that stop? And then how do we get to the point where Africans started to be traded in it like commodity?
Right.
But the thing is that because of the fact that we don't want to look past that point of slavery, now we get to points like today, where we're having not just police, but now federal agents. And don't get me wrong, as far as Black people goes, police and federal agents have been terrorizing us for years. For decades. So let's not, and we'll get to the ICE thing in a minute, but the thing is that let's not say this is like a new phenomenon. Now, how it's being implemented is new, but being terrorized by local and state and federal law enforcement is not nothing new for Black folks. But at the same time, if we don't study this history, we're going to think all of this stuff is new, and it's really, really not. So it is important to understand our history. It's important to understand our history as Black and African people, because the thing is that for years we've gone, and this is why Dr. Woodson created this, because for years we've gone without an identity. And in a lot of cases, we still going on without an identity.
And actually, I would add that it's not so much that we've gone without an identity. We've gone with an identity that the oppressor gave us.
Oh, yeah.
And the problem with an oppressor giving you an identity is that that identity is going to always keep you oppressed. So it's important for us to reclaim who we truly are. It's important for us to reclaim not only that history, but what that history does for us, what that history is for us, what those successes, what that endurance is for us. Because when your oppressor, or some people call them colonizers,
Mm-hmm.
gives you your identity, then Martin Luther King was just a nice guy that wanted his 4 little girls or his 4 children to live in a colorblind world.
He was the dreamer.
He was the dreamer. Or these other people who spoke out are sanitized.
Oh, yeah. Whitewashed.
Whitewashed.
Yes, very, very much whitewashed.
Oh.
And when you look at what, how our history is being taught to us, because I think you said it excellently, that it's being taught by the oppressor. When we think about what's been happening with King Day, and you look at these media outlets who basically just blurt out his "I have a dream" speech and ignore everything else that Dr. King has done. It is a total whitewashing of Dr. King, and it is not really telling the story of what Dr. King sacrificed and did for Black people truly. Because the thing is, we have to understand that this history has to benefit us, and it has to benefit our identity. Because when you look at when you look at other ethnic groups who examine their history, they control the narratives. When you talk to somebody about the Holocaust to Jewish people, they will tell you how it went down. They don't allow anybody else to tell them that that's really nothing. That just happened a long time ago. Y'all should have got over it.
Right.
No, but for us, slavery happened a long time ago. We should just get over it, and not understanding that a lot of the issues from the transatlantic slave trade that our ancestors had endured, but then we inherited a lot of their issues, because as we started to transition into this population that accepted us as citizens on paper, but didn't accept us as citizens as people, then we start to cultivate a lot of issues in relation to each other, in relation to them,
right?
And it just kind of like, and it was just never resolved. So this identity has to be established, because even in our Catholic spaces.
Yeah.
Because many people would think, well, if you're Catholic, you're white. But then again, it's like when you start to read the work of Father Cyprian Davis,
right,
who I consider the Carter G. Woodson of Black Catholic history,
right?
You would understand, like, Catholics have been in this since the beginning. Black people have been in this Catholic faith since it started.
Right.
So the thing is, no, Catholicism is not just a single European white thing. Christianity is not some kind of religion or ideology that developed in Europe, because the thing is, when you think about Christianity, the two major continents that this religion developed in was Asia and Africa.
Right.
And they were closely followed And a lot of the philosophies and ideas were developed in these two continents, and then it came to Europe.
Right. And the other thing to consider when we talk about Black history, Black history is American history, by the way. And it's not a separate thing. There's not American history and then there's Black history. No, Black history is American history. And that has to be understood. That has to be celebrated. Just like Native American history, Indigenous history, that's American history too. And the other thing too, a word about our Black Catholic history and our Black Catholic identity. Our Black Catholic identity is a part of the universal church. The universal church is not European. The universal church includes Europe, it includes Asia, it includes Africa, it includes South America, it includes North America, and all of those cultures and communities and ethnicities with it. Our church is a universal church. And for far, far too long, we have been operating under the idea that Europe and the European model is the standard. It's not. We've been operating under the model that you're not a true Catholic if you don't follow this particular model. That's not true. That's a falsehood. It's one of several different models. The thing about it is that when we try to have this one particular standard, it actually, to me, says that you're limiting the omnipotence of God.
Mm-hmm.
God created all of us uniquely. We can be a unified church, to be sure, but we don't have to act and we don't have to relate uniformly. So, in other words, my Black Catholic identity is just as much as part of the larger church as one from Ireland, one from Italy, one from Cameroon, one from Togo, one from Mexico, one from Peru, one from China, one from India, because we all are part of the universal church. So too, with a Black American history. It's a part of U.S. history. You can't carve it out. It's all a part of the same U.S. history. And when we carve it out, we do a disservice not only to those who are studying that history, but those who are not. Because they too are not learning the lessons.
Yeah, and I kind of cringe when people say Black history is U.S. history, because while there's nothing wrong in that statement. we got to understand too that, you know, U.S. history is not the fantasy, the fantasy that
And
most people would say, we built this country off of principles and freedom and stuff like that, because in history we just don't recognize the successes, but we also recognize the failures.
that's why I say that it's both. And that's why I get away from having this separation, because I think part of the problem with this country is we only want to see our history through rose colored glasses.
Mm-hmm.
And because we only want to see our history through rose colored glasses, things about um, slavery and things about Japanese internment camps and things about what this country even did to Jews, um, that gets whitewashed. That gets removed. As a matter of fact, I believe that the Trump administration actually had some placards removed in Philadelphia, I want to say,
Mm-hmm.
that talked about that history because they felt that it was disruptive.
Yeah, and that is not understanding history.
Exactly.
Because when you understand history, you have to understand the good and the bad of it. This is where the compass comes in, because if we can dissect it, we can analyze it. And a lot of the things, and going back to your point earlier about um, the oppressors telling our story, the thing too is we don't let the reason why we have to tell our story, because also with this identity that was labeled on us as Black people, um, we have been fighting for our rights and freedoms ever since the beginning,
Yep.
ever since this start of when we started classifying people as race.
Yep.
Because while race is a new concept in human history, it's only been out for about 500 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's a social construct. However, it is enforced. It is enforced. So while theoretically it is not real, socially it is real, because we do have Black people out here who are losing their lives at a much younger age. Their quality of living is not up to the standard of what a human should be.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing too is, when we think about this concept of race, which is, like I said, a social construct that benefits typically white people. There is an enforcement of it, but that's the history that we don't understand, because what they tell us is race is just a feeling of hating somebody of a different color, and that is the so bland explanation of race when you don't look at the history. But at the same time, if we examine history properly, we can understand where we come from and where we're going to go, because um, too many times we ignore history. And this is not just Black history, because we ignore history, and we don't understand that if we don't do something about certain things go in a circle.
Right.
We were just talking to one of our friends at the church
Mm-hmm.
about how her father sees things linearly, but then people
Always circle back to.
always circle back to it, and we don't have anybody to break the circle because of the fact that they don't understand the history of it.
Right.
So when we're talking about, say, going into this ICE situation, especially that's happening in Minnesota,
Mm-hmm.
and talks of a civil war that might possibly happen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, many people feel like, well, I'm being an alarmist. I'm just, I'm just trying to rile people up. But when you got federal agents just indiscriminately killing folks, and now they're killing white people. It's like, okay, is nobody sounding the alarm? And I say that we talking about a possible civil war because what happened 15 years before the Civil War? Kansas was in an uproar because of the slavery. Bleeding Kansas.
Yeah.
there was literally fights, and I'm not talking about fist fights. I'm talking about shoot 'em up fights about slavery because
Yeah.
going back to history, Kansas was one of those states that was fighting about joining the Union or not. Now, if they joined the Union, they had to get rid of slavery because there were parts of Kansas that was still practicing slavery. But then, if they joined the Union, all of Kansas would have to remove slavery.
Right.
Well, there were people in Kansas who didn't like that. So they literally took up arms and formed militias against those who were abolitionists and anti-slavery. And there was a situation that happened for 4 years called Bleeding Kansas. so,
Yeah.
so that happened between 50 and 54, and then you get the Missouri Compromise, but then 7 years later, the Civil War happens.
Right. And so it's what's really interesting, and it's interesting that you brought that up. So let's go back to why, for example, the Missouri Compromise came about. The Missouri Compromise came about was because, and that was whether or not Missouri should be accepted as a free state or a slave state. And it was, yes, they could, Maine can come in as a free state, but outside of Missouri, you couldn't have slavery under a certain line. So then, fast forward to the 1850s, and after the Mexican American War, you have all of this extra land that slave owners want to move in with their plantations, which will push out the small farmer. Now, the reason why this is important is because we're seeing similar things that's going on right now. And so the question became, how do we decide, how can the big plantation owners who want to move into all of this land that the U.S. has now gotten, how can they move into it? Well, one way is to get rid of that Missouri Compromise and just simply let states or territories decide for themselves if they should be free or if they should be slave. In the case of Kansas, which for the most part was free, when it came time for Kansas to become a state, you had a bunch of folks moving in Kansas that wanted it to be a slave state. So then now you have this fight. And it was John Brown that ended up hacking a lot of people, a white man, by the way.
Exactly.
So when you think about it, under this overlay of race, which is easy to see, it was always, always, always about economics. Fast forward to now, 2025 or 2026. And what we're seeing today in places like Minneapolis, how our farmers are now hurting. Once again, the small individual farmers are getting pushed out. Why? Because of tariffs. They're losing their market base because of tariffs. Who's going to come in? The big agri farms that's going to buy out these little farms because they can't survive. what you're also seeing now in Minneapolis, which is, I would say, the new bleeding Kansas, is this fight. While they say it's for immigration and migrants, I think one estimate that I saw is that actually the place that has the most immigrants is in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't see all of this going on. I know that while I understand that the governor in Texas is very Trump friendly to this administration, you don't see the level of ICE agents going through Texas terrorizing people.
Yeah, and there's another state that has probably 2 or 3 times more immigrants than Minneapolis, and that's Florida,
Mm-hmm.
another red state.
Right.
With the amount of Cubans, Venezuelans, Dominicans, all of those nationalities and ethnic groups from the Caribbean and South America, they're all in Miami. I mean, they're literally, but what's also weird about that is majority of the immigrants who are being deported from that particular area in Miami are the Haitians.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we all know why
Right.
the Haitians are the only targets of illegal immigration in Miami.
Well,
but
they're not the only, but I mean, I would say that a fair large number of them, the lion's share of them are Haitian.
Exactly.
Are Haitians.
Mm-hmm.
They're throwing a few Cubans and Venezuelans in there to kind of throw off the scent, but
Mm-hmm.
they're mostly, yeah, they're mostly Haitians.
But let me add. So you made that analogy about Minneapolis being the new bleeding Kansas now,
Mm-hmm.
because of the fact that do you think that it is now a war going on? Because in a war, and here's the warning shot, because if this keeps happening, people are not gonna keep taking federal agents, no matter what government they're under, to keep to just allow them to just keep shooting them down. Somewhere along the line, there's going to be resistance, and obviously, people would be saying, well, we can't go against the United States. They're the most powerful military in the world. Well, that didn't worry the colonists back during the American Revolution, because they fought against the British Army,
Yeah, the British
which at the
Empire,
time was the most powerful army in the world.
Yeah.
They didn't care. So at one point or another, when is somebody going to say, we're going to pull that trigger and say, we had enough of this, and next thing you know, a full-blown war is about to happen?
I kind of feel like, and bear in mind, neither one of us is advocating
Thank you.
that that you go up in arms. Okay.
Thank you.
Neither one of us is advocating that. And peacefully protesting is the way to go. I mean, all you have to do is just look at Dr. King's playbook. And it didn't always work out where, even though they might have been peacefully protesting, that they weren't attacked. They were pretty regularly. You have to expect that with a peaceful protest. But I do believe that at some point this year, President Trump is going to invoke the Insurrection Act. And when he invokes the Insurrection Act, that's going to give him the legal cover that he needs to go in there with guns blazing. When that happens, then I think that you are going to see some bad players come out, and we're going to see a repeat of Bleeding Kansas. We're going to see a repeat of
Civil War,
of the riots that occurred in 1919. We're going to see a repeat of some of the riots that occurred in the 1960s.
which unfortunately will probably lead to a civil war. And this is the scary uh, this is the scary outlook of this situation, because in the Civil War there are really no winners
Mm-mm.
in this situation. Even in the Civil War that happened in the 19th century, while the North did win, and we did abolish slavery legally in this country, um, millions of people died, including mostly people of African descent, fighting for that freedom. But then, when you think about the aftermath of that war, and you think about the Reconstruction period of it,
Mm-hmm.
because, and I think I was talking to you about this before we went on camera,
Mm-hmm.
about Donald Trump,
Yeah.
and how Donald Trump is a culmination of things that were not resolved over the last couple of decades. Because as we saw, presidents got progressively worse and worse and worse until you get to Donald Trump. But now here's the thing, because whoever is the next president, if there is a next president,
Right.
there has to be a point where this person, he or she, is going to have to say, we will openly investigate and convict and prosecute this administration for war crimes, for crimes against humanity.
Yep.
Because if that does not happen, there will be a president down the line that's going to be worse than Donald Trump. And I'm going to say this because when you think about the aftermath of the Civil War, what happened to the Confederates that they put in jail?
they actually released them. Not only did they release them, but they actually got reparations because of the actually got reparations for the land that they lost, the commodities that they lost, and the only thing that they had to agree to was that slavery's over and that they were wrong for rebelling against the United States.
Yeah. So
that was it. So, and the problem with that is that they did not address the larger issue that those that were formerly enslaved are now U.S. citizens. And while after Johnson left office and Ulysses S. Grant became president, for a period of time, there was enforcement. That's the time that we call the Reconstruction period. There was some enforcement, and you had the weight of the U.S. government behind it. You saw the emergence of the Ku Klux Klan at this time, and the Ku Klux Klan being put down. It was only after the U.S. Grant did not run after second term, and basically Washington lost his appetite to actually enforce those rules, that you saw this backtracking, this circular course correction, if you will, of going back to what things were.
yeah, because they withdrew the federal troops from the
Yes.
South, and next thing you know, the Klan, who were the released Confederates, shall we remind ourselves how many people were released on the January 6th criminals?
Yeah,
Kind of see the parallels here.
exactly.
So when you think about what happened after the Civil War and what's happening now, We just released a whole bunch of criminals, just like they did back in the 19th century, because the Confederates were criminals. They tried to overthrow the government, but like you said, they never addressed that, and they felt like, okay, if they just agree that slavery is over, then they should be good. The accountability in all of this
Exactly.
makes it really really bad, because what we're seeing now, because we talked about this in last month in our podcast. I talked about how, um, you know, white supremacy is now cool again,
Yeah.
but we're also seeing the rise of the Confederacy. I know, like, people like to put the Nazi label on them, and they are Nazi adjacent. But when you think about our history, going back to history, this is the rise of the Confederacy. The Confederacy now has a place in Washington where we're going to get back all of that stuff that we lost in the 19th century. And we're going to take it back.
And one other note about this whole comparison of the Nazis, where do you think the Nazis got their playbook from?
Exactly.
They got it from us.
They studied the Confederates.
Yeah, they not only did they study the Confederates, they actually studied also those Jim Crow laws. They studied that, and based off of what we had with the Jim Crow laws, they created their Nuremberg laws. So everything goes back to what we've done, what this country has done. And when you mentioned the January 6th, folks that were, all of them that were pardoned, who exactly do you think are some of those ICE agents today?
Exactly.
Because bear in mind that they actually lowered the standards on who can be an ICE agent. Not only did they lower the standards, they gave the new recruits a $50,000 bonus.
Which I heard some of them didn't even get paid that.
So, I mean, they get a $50,000 bonus. And I understand that they're training, because there used to be that in order to work for ICE, you had to be trained for at least 6 months.
Oh, yeah. This is why I say that these are not real ICE agents. They are deputized race soldiers that are put on the streets to do whatever their ICE commanders tell them to do, whether it be arrest illegal immigrants or not, or anybody who gets in their way.
Right.
Because as was released, there was a memo that went out that basically stated, and this was not something that was signed by a court or anything. It just basically said, ignore the fact that you have to have a court order to break into somebody's house, which is basically a constitutional right for anybody in this country. Any law enforcement, whether it be local, state, or federal, cannot enter your home without a signed warrant. They are literally telling ICE agents that you do not need that warrant.
Right.
And surprisingly enough, even though that they released, the press had released that information, that memo was from a couple of months ago. That memo is old.
Right.
And it was just released to the public not too long ago. So they have been planning this for a while.
Yeah, exactly. It's really interesting because on one hand, one of the things that I'm constantly hearing is that we are a country of laws. We are a country of laws, and if you follow the law, then you'll be fine. You'll be okay. But what happens when we compromise those laws? What happens when justices on the Supreme Court say that you have limited immunity? What happens when members of Congress allow the powers that they possess to be ceded over to the president. We're no longer become a country of laws. It's power. And when you are willing to compromise the law, the rule of law, power is going to gobble it all up with you in it. And that's what we're seeing right now. 2 weeks ago, Renee Good was shot and killed. An ICE agent put 3 bullets in her as she was trying to drive away. And no, her car was not trying to hit him. Video footage shows repeatedly that she was actually pulling away. Video footage also shows that she was actually waving cars around her. Video footage shows that said ICE agent was juggling both his phone and his gun when he shot her 3 times. The other person that was just killed yesterday, Saturday, his name was Alex Peretti. Alex Peretti was a VA nurse. And he had his camera out trying to help direct traffic as ICE was coming through. And he noticed that ICE agents shoved this woman to the ground. Now, some people say the chivalry is dead, but not for Alex Peretti, because he came to her defense. And what did 8 ICE agents do to him? They knocked him to the ground. And as he was on all fours trying to get up, they put bullets, I believe it was 10, in his back. Now, some will say, well, he had a gun on him. That gun was removed from him. He didn't even have it in his hands. As a matter of fact, there is video footage showing that an ICE agent removed his gun and was running away as another ICE agent pulled his gun out and shot him. Are we still a country of laws?
Not at all. And let's not forget
Yes.
Keith Porter,
yeah.
a black man who was gunned down by an ICE agent in Los Angeles. Probably was it a day when the woman was killed, or it was like the same day?
I think it was either the same day or the day before.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is that not a lot has been said about that, because for one, there's no video footage of it.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, this happened while this ICE agent was off duty. And it happened on New Year's Eve.
Right.
Because apparently what was claimed by this ICE agent was Mr. Keith Porter, who was a black man, was shooting his gun, and many of his friends said it was in the air because of the fact that on New Year's everybody shoots their gun. This ICE agent basically took it as a threat and decided to shoot Mr. Keith Porter to death. So not much is talked about that because of the fact that, like I said, it wasn't, and Mr. Porter wasn't protesting or anything like that.
He was celebrating New Year's Eve.
He was celebrating New Year's Eve. And this ICE agent, who many of Mr. Porter's friends and family said that had a vendetta against him for some reason or another. I don't know what it is. But the thing is that when we as black people, especially African Americans, start thinking about, well, this is not our fight because we're not immigrants. that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter at all. Because the thing is, it is our fight. Because guess what's going to happen? They're going to bring it to us. They're already bringing it to us.
Yeah.
They're already bringing it to us. The war, well, I wouldn't even call it a war because of the fact that most of the killing is being done on our side. We're the ones that are sacrificing the bodies. So when you sit there and talk about that this is not our war, I think you better look at history. You better watch the news, because people like Keith Porter is not an anomaly. There are many more Keith Porters out there that we don't even know about.
Absolutely.
And now they're killing white people? Oh, yeah. So if they're killing white people now, what are they going to think about you? So I would suggest we all take this seriously. Every single one of us who cares about human life. Take this seriously, because this is a warning to all of us. And it doesn't matter, black, white, or whatever. This is a warning to everybody in this country. Are we going to live, like you said, by a nation of laws? Or are we going to live in a society where
power only rules?
And if we don't conform to that power, then we will either be enslaved or we will be dead.
Yep.
So that is the dilemma that we must deal with in 2026. There are no sideline players in this. There are no, I'm not part of this. I don't want to deal with politics. I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to deal with this. No, because guess what's going to happen? It's going to come to your front door.
Yeah.
And sooner or later, you're going to have to answer it, because they're not going to go away. They're not going to go away. Now, what am I telling you here? I'm just telling you that you cannot be a sideline player. There has to be something that you can do in order to stop the circle that we were talking about. Because if we don't stop the circle, civil war will happen. And if we just sit back and say, well, I'm not going to get involved in this, then what's going to happen is that, like I said, it's going to come into your face. So the question becomes, how do you get involved? How do you get involved? Because in a lot of respects, we can fight this on a lot of fronts.
Yeah.
We can fight this on a lot of fronts. We don't have to pick up a gun and fire back. Matter of fact, that shouldn't be the strategy right now. Because for one, we're outgunned. We don't have the weapons that ICE has. So our strategy is to think of something else that we can do to quell this violence, to stop these unnecessary killings by this federal agency. And we have to understand that every one of us who dignifies human life for everybody is in this.
Right. And I would say that your first steps is learn your history. Because not only does your history show you what the next steps are, it also gives you good, solid information on how to stop it. Because it's happened before.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is know your rights. It's not enough just to know what the First Amendment is and what the Second Amendment is. Know all of the amendments. Know your rights. The other thing is become engaged. Write to your congresspeople. Write them, call them. Let them know that you're watching, that you're paying attention. And the other thing is have a plan. Have a plan. Know where your paperwork is at. And if somebody comes knocking on your door, just know you don't have you don't have to let them in.
Yeah.
It is very, very important, especially now as we celebrate 100 years of Black history, as we celebrate in July 250 years of this nation.
Ironically.
Yeah. That if we want to continue one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, we have to not only mean it, but we also have to believe it and do things to ensure that liberty and justice for all means liberty and justice for all.
Exactly. Um, and one last final thing, as we said earlier, or as I said earlier, this is our first calendar year doing this. So I hope people who are viewing this, who have been viewing us for the last calendar year, we hope you get something productive out of this, because we really like disseminating a lot of this information. And to I know a lot of us don't. A lot of us feel that when we do these commentaries and we look at it, and like I say in the opening, from a Black Catholic's perspective, um, sometimes we just talk about issues that deal with Black people that are that are not just Catholic; they're just everybody. But we have to understand too that we're Black Catholic, we're Black people, so that concerns us as well. Yes, we do talk about the church, and we do talk about some of the positives and negatives of the church. One of the things that I do want to say is I do like the fact that a lot of clergy are stepping up
Yes.
against this repression. So my thing is I applaud them for that. Let's keep it going, because in a lot of cases the clergy are silent on a lot of things that deal with Black folks. And so we hope that you get something from this podcast. Hopefully we can give another full calendar year of information. And this is basically supplementary information for our electronic publication we
Yes.
call The Pulse of Black Catholic Chicago. So if you have not subscribed to The Pulse, we have the email in the description. Just send us an email. We'll put you on the email list. It is a publication that comes out every month that talks about issues surrounding Black Catholics and Black people in this country and in the Chicagoland area. So, and also follow us on social media, Facebook, X. We also would like for you to like and comment and share this video that you're watching right now. So, any final thoughts?
Yes. One final thought and one other thing, which is probably the most important thing that we can all do: pray. Remember who we are and whose we are. Remember that ultimately God has the last say. And also remember, don't ever lose hope. We've had tough times like this before, and we've gotten past them. We'll get past this too, as long as we remember that we are a people of God, we are a people of faith, and that as long as we continue to pray, that we'll be okay.
Yeah, and I would also add pray and work, because we just can't pray and just sit back and let God do all the work, because God uses us as instruments of his justice, and we need to work on his behalf.
Yes, because prayers without works is dead.
And Frederick Douglass said it best. I pray for freedom day and night. But when I got off on my knees and start praying on my feet, that's when freedom came to me. So we all need to pray on our feet.
Yes.
So you can pray us out.
May the Lord bless you and keep you, and may His light shine behind. May the Lord bless you and keep you, and may His light shine upon you and give you peace. And may the wisdom of God always be with you, and may the courage of God always strengthen you, and may God's love always protect us and lead us. In Jesus' name, I pray. Amen.
Amen.